What up, VC? Kieran here. Happy New Year. January 1st. Been, I guess, just over 2 months since I last jumped on. As you may hear, a little congested. Been not been the best fall. Been sick a few times. Been going around a lot here. Just having some tea here. Having a day chilling out at home. After I film this, I'm gonna just spend the rest of the day listening to records, which is not something I've been able to do a ton of. Just busy, as I'm sure you all are. And when I'm super sick, I don't really feel like usually listening to records too much. Spent the morning kind of just cleaning up, cleaning the home, getting things organized, fresh start to the new year. But as the year wraps up, I just wanted to jump on and kind of show the last bunch of records that I've picked up since, I guess the last time was when I was in Burlington with, at the Burlington Record Fair. I've actually went back to Burlington once since then in December for a quick day trip with my girlfriend. So I'll tell you that story. The rest is mostly local stuff. So my girlfriend and I like going down to Burlington just to hit up Trader Joe's and a couple other spots. So anyway, where does the story start? I guess I was at a local shop here, and the owner was selling a bunch of stuff from his own collection, and it wasn't necessarily in the shop bins. He often has like stuff next to the counter that is kind of like on Discogs, but he had some crates this time that were there that were not on Discogs, but they weren't out in the shop either. So it was stuff from, I guess he had probably brought it to Live Convention in Toronto and some other shows. And anyway, so I was looking through those, and he had a copy of a Frank Cunimando record, but it was really expensive. Anyway, I looked it up to see, and I was like, oh, it seems oddly priced because a lot of dead stock has been selling, so at like a fraction of the price. So I guess when he had priced it, it was before all his dead stock had hit the market, when the value was kind of, somewhat around where he had priced it. In general, I would say his prices were on the high end, but didn't seem to be in a rush to sell any of these things. And I guess when you go to fairs, he's able to command those prices for them, especially in places like Toronto, so fair enough, which is kind of probably why they're not out in his shop. Anyway, so I sent a message to Jeff, who some of you may know or follow at Mostly Records. Don't know why I thought of Jeff. I don't know. I said to Jeff, I'm like, oh, I see there's a bunch of dead stock of this record selling. And turns out Jeff had recently kind of unearthed a bunch of dead stock of some Frank Cunimando records. So I was able to procure some from him, and he kind of gave me a bit of the story, the backstory on why and how, where this dead stock came from and how, and why it was popping up everywhere. Anyway, so all that leads to Jeff, who lives in the US, in Pittsburgh area, sending the records to a shop in Burlington for me so I could go pick them up since it's just across the border. So the story will start with, this is what I picked up at that local shop that did have the Frank Cunimando record from those crates. This Marva Whitney, It's My Thing. So I did grab something from the owner selling stuff from his collection. Record I've wanted for a long time, on King, obviously, James Brown, the JBs, killer classic funk. And this is a Canadian pressing, not a record I was super familiar with. I sampled it back in the day, but I've never seen a used copy. And I know they're often pretty beat up, is what I mean. Just kind of what I see with all James Brown records from that era, pretty beat up because they got played. So this is a really clean, probably a VG plus, but plays really well, and the cover's in great shape as well. Copy. So I did grab that, and then that led to me getting the Frank Cunimando records from Jeff. So thank you, Jeff, very kind of you. And actually I've spun this already, but was my first spin of the year. When I came up to my little record room this morning, this is what I put on. So the Frank Canimundo Trio Echoes. As you can see, Jeff sent me this promo copy with the timestamp. This is on Mondo Records, which was that his label or was it? I don't know anything about the label. Manufactured Queen City Album Inc., Cincinnati, Ohio. Anyway, so one side of this is piano, and then the second side, electric Rhodes, and it is just absolutely gorgeous. Great way to start the new year, start the day this morning. Definitely comes up and down in energy, has some groove, peaceful. It's just a beautiful, beautiful record. If you're not familiar, highly recommend you go check this one out. And then I also got this one, the Frank Canimundo Trio, introducing Lynn Marino. I would say I prefer Echoes. This one is vocal jazz, really, really nice. The reason I first probably even heard of Frank Canimundo is from watching the Bling 47 series, which talks about Dilla samples. And this one, House Shoes has a little video on how Dilla flipped the Feeling Good cover on here, which is a great, great version of Feeling Good. But also beautiful, beautiful album. If you're into vocal jazz, this one has like a really nighttime smoky vibe to it. So, but if I had to choose between the two, for me it's Echoes, songs, the vocals, and with the electric keys. But even with the side with the acoustic piano is excellent. And they're just trio records. The Echoes is a trio record, and the bass and drums are really on point. Obviously, while I was down there, actually, one of the reasons why I haven't played this yet, but one of the reasons I also wanted to go to Burlington is because when I was there in October, I had asked Greg at Autumn Records, how did I know he had this record? I guess I had seen him posted on Instagram, and I asked him about it when I was there for the fair, and he was like, oh, I'm supposed to have one more copy, but I can't find it, but I'll try to get more in. So he reached out to me saying, hey, Kieran, I got more of these in. I'm like, keep one for me. I'll try to make it down before Christmas. So I'll probably play this today. I actually haven't had a chance yet, but this is Roy Brook Ethnic Expressions reissue on P-Vine. So just absolute, almost unfindable jazz grill. I know some of you out there have it. Van, I know you have this. So Roy Brooks, Olu Dara, Hamiet Blewett, Reggie Workman, Joseph Bonner, Eddie Jefferson, Cecil Bridgewater, Sonny Fortune, John Stubblefield, Hilton Ruiz, Richard Landrum, and Lawrence Williams. Interesting. I just got hip to this Hilton Ruiz album on Steeplechase that is really cheap. That I know someone bought locally, and he's on here. So yeah, gonna probably spin this later because I haven't had a chance yet. And then anyway, what else did I grab? Grabbed a couple things from Burlington. Oh, so I also grabbed this from Greg. This was really unexpected find out of a Japanese jazz grail of sorts. This is Daguri by Kosuke Mine Quintet. On different albums, his name will be spelled differently. On this one, it's Kosuke, but on others, it'll be Kosuke. And then even Kosuke is spelled differently is what I've noticed. So I'm not sure what the proper pronunciation, but this is his maybe third or fourth album. I have two of his other albums that were reissued, Evolution and Mine, I think they are. From the BBE Jazz Masterclass series, I think it's called. Anyway, there's tons of great jazz, J-Jazz reissues coming out over the past few years. But this is an original first pressing on Victor. I wasn't familiar with this at all. But when I listened to it, I saw it on the wall and I listened to it in the shop. I was like, okay, this is gonna come home with me. And very like kind of Coltrane esque playing. He does play soprano as well as tenor. I thought he played another instrument, soprano and tenor. I'm not familiar. Well, yeah, I've heard of some of these other Japanese musicians, but there's another tenor player on here, and then piano, bass, and drums, recorded in June of 1973. If you are familiar with Japanese jazz, J-jazz, you probably know this. If you aren't, or if you're kind of new to it as I am over the past few years, this would be a great one to check out, especially if you're a fan of Coltrane, as most of us are. From Burlington, so that was from Autumn. I got the Ethnic Expressions and the Daiguri. And then I did grab this from Burlington Records, from Ian over at Burlington Records, Arthur Blythe, Lennox Avenue Breakdown. Kind of a cheap record that I've heard people talk about years ago. Figured I'd find eventually, but did not come across it until now. And this is from 1979. I have not spun this yet. Just picked it up a couple of weeks ago. I'm looking for the lineup on here. I know I read it somewhere. Maybe I read it online. I feel like I'd love to tell you who's on here. I'm pretty sure I feel like Cecil McBee, James Newton. Yeah, there's no like listing of the players on here. It's on. So yeah, this is on Columbia. Strange. Anyway, check it out online. This goes for almost nothing, and from what I've heard, well worth picking up, and from what I sampled quickly online, sounded good, so that'll also go into the pile to play right now as soon as I'm done this video. This is Representing by Joshua Abrams. This, I guess, was a used copy that they had. I really enjoyed this record this year. Since Time is Gravity Community Ensemble with Arie Brown, Joshua Abrams Natural Information Society. I haven't shown that. I know, Dom, you've been big on that. So I had picked that one up locally and then grabbed this from Ian just because I saw it for a good price in the jazz section there. So I was happy to find that, and also gonna be probably playing that today. Lots to play. And I got all day tomorrow to play some records as well. Okay, so what else we got? There was a little fair here, they call it Vinyl Caravan. And they do every few months at different spots, they'll kind of pop up. I grabbed 2 records, I think, 2 cheap records. So Nat Adderley Septet, Don't Look Back, one that I had been looking for, just had seen it. I think I'd probably seen people say good things about it, and it is indeed excellent. I was a little disappointed at first because when I first put it on, and it still does this, but kind of just like, I don't know if it's a pressing thing, but there's just like a little distortion on the beginning of the first track, and I've cleaned it probably twice, and I keep playing it, and it's still picking up dust throughout the whole record. So I guess it's just really dirty. So this is originally on Steeplechase. This is the inner city copy. Actually, a friend of mine here, Mehdi, pulled this out, and I was like, oof. I was like, oh, nice find, but he ended up letting me buy it, so I appreciate it. Thank you, Mehdi. Not like a rare record, but one that I haven't seen. And this has a great lineup and really just excellent post-bop. It has some groove to it at times. There's piano, acoustic piano, as well as electric piano, but it definitely has an edge to it. So it's not your typical like 60s Adderley stuff. John Stubblefield, again, who plays on the Ethnic Expressions on tenor and soprano sax. Ken McIntyre on alto sax, bass clarinet, flute, and oboe. Alan Gums on piano, electric piano, and clavinet. Then you have Fernando Gums, who I was unfamiliar with, who is a cousin of Alan. And then 2 other musicians, Ira Buddy Williams and Victor C.U.N. on drums and percussion. Not familiar with either. And they do what was I just blown? Oh yeah, so they do a version of Ken McIntyre's Home. So he has an album titled Home, also on Steeplechase Inner City. And it's just absolutely gorgeous. So check that out. They also do Harold Vick's Don't Look Back, which is the title of his album on Strata East. And then there's one track composed by Nat, one by Fernando Gums, and one by Alan Gums, and then one by Ira Williams. So they all kind of contribute to this great record that'll only cost you maybe 10-15 bucks or even less if you get lucky. So check that out. I've been listening to that actually this morning a couple times. Another inner city record, originally released on Enja. This is one I've been after for a long time. Was hoping to find one that is in a little better shape cover-wise. This one just has like some top seam wear, but Hal Galper with Terma Suhino, who adds definitely some edge to this session. Cecil McBee and Tony Williams. This is really good. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know how I feel about Cecil McBee, who I'm pretty sure is on that Arthur Blythe record. Hino obviously plays trumpet, but as well as flugelhorn on here. And the 5 out of the 6 tracks are all composed by Hal. And then they do a version of Bemsha Swing by Monk. What else? Yeah, this is from 77. Oh, this Nat Adderley record is from 77 as well. I forgot to mention. So yeah, super happy to find this locally, just in the bins at the shop. Another inner city record, which I just picked up yesterday and did spin this morning while I was putting a piece of furniture together. This is Judy Roberts. This I knew had been at the local shop for a while, and was more than I wanted to pay, but I figured I'd ask since it had been there for a while what they could do, and made me a very fair price. So I don't know much about Judy Roberts. I just know this is one that I've seen posted. You see it in, like, people have it as like I guess it's kind of like a people who collect breaks or hip hop stuff. Rare Groove. She plays vocal. She sings, but she also plays electric piano. Which is modified by Mike Reinhardt. ARP Pro, interesting. I don't know any of the other musicians on here, but just a whole list of different ways that she's modifying her piano, her Fender Rhodes. Phil Grateau, Tony Carpenter, Neil Soroka, and Sean Silverman. So kind of like jazzy and soulful, but also kind of jazz fusion, soulful jazz fusion. It's an interesting record, some really nice moments on here. Originally on, I guess, a private label, or was it her own label? MMO Musics from 1979, not a label I'm familiar with, but this is, I guess, Inner City bought the rights. So we're checking out, and not too expensive. I think there was one for sale on Discogs in the US for 25 bucks. We did do a little digging trip to Ottawa. A few of my friends here in November. So we just went for the day. We all had the same day off and went during the week actually to Ottawa. Not super exciting, but we knew what we were getting into. Just fun to to go through some different crates, different shops. I don't think I've shown these yet because I don't think I've made a video since then, but I picked up this Horus Silver record, the Horus Silver Quintet Silver Serenade, which is just a really nice hard bop record. This is an original mono pressing. So yeah, just, this was at the first shop we went to, and I knew, not really something I was necessarily after, but I knew we had driven an hour and a half and there was a good chance I wouldn't find much that day. So I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna want to come home with something, and the price was fair. So on here you have Junior Cook, Horus Silver, obviously Blue Mitchell on trumpet, Gene Taylor on bass, and Roy Brooks on drums. All of these 60s kind of Horus records, and they don't go for much, but he was really consistent in this period. I know some people don't really like what he got into in the early 70s, but solid hard bop. This was a nice score. It was actually on one of the stores there has like a website, so they don't put their stuff on Discogs. They have a website, so I kind of knew this was there, and they have a separate little location. It's called the Record Center, and then they have a Record Center 2 where they have all their website stuff. And this is Billy Bang, Changing Seasons. I have the Billy Bang Untitled Gift, which I believe is on Anima Records, which I absolutely love, with Don Cherry. And this one is on Bellows Records from 1981. So Billy Bang, who plays violin, if you're not familiar. Not all jazz violin is really my thing, but I really dig most of Billy Bang's stuff that I've heard. Not all though, there's one record I did not dig at all. William Parker plays bass on here. Toshi Tsuchitori on percussion and auto harp. And this is on Bellows, so this is what the label looks like. Kind of a private pressy looking label, so definitely not, yes, it's free and it's kind of abrasive, but I don't know, I do find peace with this. So it's not for everyone, but I do find it accessible in ways and very, very moving. So if you're into Billy Bang, you may not be familiar with this one, unless you're really into Billy Bang, but I would say check it out. But if you're gonna check out one Billy Bang, my favorite is definitely the Untitled Gift. I think it's called something like that, but this one's also really good. Okay, so that was from the Ottawa. This was also a pickup yesterday with the Judy Roberts. This is Joe Tex, The Love You Save. And I had added this to my want list years ago because of the title track, The Love You Save May Be Your Own. And I discovered that song from, I think I remember the scene, but I'm not sure, I have to go back, but I remember it from Death Proof. I think it's when they're in the bar in the first half of the movie, where the Kurt Russell comes into the bar, and it's just gorgeous track. If you're not familiar, The Love You Save by Joe Tex. This is a original Canadian stereo. So for those of you that aren't familiar, what an Canadian Atlantic label looked like in the late 60s, it's this red label. In the early 60s, they were maroon instead of like a black label, or with the whole different variations of the fan. But yeah, so happy to grab that. Whole record is nice, but that track is the standout. This is, okay, a few more local finds. This is kind of off my path a little bit, but not really. Familiar with this band, but don't have any of their records. And the reason a friend of mine who works at a shop here told me they got it in, and I didn't know what he was talking about. He said, "Oh, we got that Embryo record with Mal Waldron on it," and I said, "Oh, not familiar with that." So I checked it out, and I was blown away by it, actually. Particularly one song, Warm Canto, I believe it's called. Warm Canto. There's only 4 tracks on here. So kind of like just Mal Waldron on electric keys, and it's just absolutely beautiful. Embryo, you're probably familiar with. This is an original on Brain. Krautrock, definitely a lot of world influence on here. Jazzy, as well as a whole types of different, there's a whole lot of different like genres blended, but also electric guitar. But this one, the whole thing's good, but yeah, that track, Warm Canto, is the one for me. And they had bought a whole collection of kind of krautrock and psych prog stuff. And they had a few other Embryo records, but this is the one that stood out for me. And I'm a huge Mal Waldron fan. I believe there's another one with Mal Waldron, but I'm a huge Mal Waldron fan, so I thought this was really cool to pick up. and wild cover. Another one locally. When I say locally, these are pretty much almost all from the same shop. The rest are. This I just picked up right before Christmas. Also, look, I'm in like waiting to spin this one because I wasn't familiar with this record. I looked it up when I saw they had it and was listening to it a bunch in the car. And the more I listened, the more I wanted it, so decided to grab it. So I'm waiting. I'll probably either spin this today or tomorrow with full attention. It is a record that kind of requires that. I also kind of looked up, what I do is I'll look up a record on Instagram to see when I'm unfamiliar with it, to kind of see who's posted it. And I saw Chris Cole, you had posted it and enjoyed it. So that's always a nice, when there's a cosign from someone you trust. So Robert Rockwell, I think a lot of these musicians are from the band Natural Life, if I understand, which I've heard of but not too familiar with. This one's from 74, and so I think these are all Minnesota musicians. And Bobby Lyle, who I'm familiar with the name, and I think I have the image of one of his records, but I don't have it, nor am I familiar with the music. But Bobby Lyle on piano and electric piano on here. So this is kind of like some free but funky jazz, and it kind of blends between the two, back and forth as well as together. So there's definitely some edgy stuff on here and then some super funky moments as well. Yeah, so this was an original. It's called Androids from 74 on Celebration Records. Kind of has this nice textured paper cover. Okay, this is turning into a long video. If you're still with me, another record completely unfamiliar with that I found at the same local shop, Au 33 Tours, on Discovery. Anthony Ortega, musician. I knew the name and I've seen some of his records. And this one, the cover obviously caught my eye, very striking. And it's on Discovery, which I have a few records on Discovery, but it's mostly kind of like Latin jazz, and which this is not. And I'm not familiar with any of the other musicians on here. So Mona Ortega on vibes and piano, Joseph Coleman on guitar, Dennis Woodrich on bass, Ronald Ogden on drums, and Ortega plays bass, clarinet, tenor, and alto flute. And this also has kind of like this really cool texture on the cover. And this record, I mean, this is not essential, it won't blow you away, but I did listen to this as soon as I got it home because I was very excited to just kind of see, and I really, really did enjoy this kind of post-bop. It's from 1978, and Ortega wrote most of the songs on here. I guess Mona would probably be his wife, who also wrote a song on here. 2 songs on here. So yeah, anyway, an interesting one you can check out online. I'm pretty sure you can hear, I can't remember if you could hear any tracks online of this or not. This was also from that little fair. I picked this up. I'd seen this before, almost grabbed it at the shop, but not a few years ago. And it, I think, I don't know, it's like $10 or something, 10 or 15 bucks. Arie Lawrence with Larry Coryell and Roy Haynes, Hal Galper, Richard Davis, and Carlene Ray. And this kind of like some psych vibe jazz, obviously with the guitar. Sounds really good too on Project 3, and comes in a really nice laminated gatefold cover. That's what the label looks like. There was definitely some standout tracks, but I don't remember which ones they were, but I did listen to this a couple times and I really enjoyed it. I was glad I picked it up. When I first saw it years ago, I was like hesitant if it was really going to be my thing. I do have one Arie Lawrence record from the late 70s or early 80s on, is it Dr. Jazz? I can't remember which label it's on. It's like a super cheap and cheesy cover, orange cover, which is a great record. but so is this. These last three are from a fellow collector who is selling his collection. Some of you I know have also been buying from him. I've picked up a few other records from him since the summer, and this was another kind of, let's call it, order or box that I got from him a couple months ago. Record I've wanted for a long time, one more to the Strata East collection. So Oneness of Juju, or in this case just Juju at this point. Chapter 2, Nia. Don't really need to say much about this record. For the label, you're all familiar. This is, I think the last, now I have all 4 Juju records from the 70s, believe that's all of them. But yeah, really great. Always special when you can add another Strata East to the collection, especially one that you want. There's a few that I still want that I don't have, but there's also a few that I don't really need. But this is one of the ones that I've looked for years and never seen a copy. Another record I've wanted for years, the last Joe Henderson milestone, although there's a couple I have that could need an upgrade. But this is one that I had never come across ever, and I've seen most of them more than once, including Elements. But yeah, this blew me away. Definitely more on the fusion side, I would say, than any of his other milestone recordings. They all have, not all, but they all have kind of their own sound and vibe. Like Elements, totally different than any of the others. But yes, you have James Ulmer on guitar on this, on one of the tracks, which kind of changes the vibe altogether. Where Joe also plays flutes, Larry Willis on electric piano on here, Dave Holland on electric and acoustic bass, Jack DeJohnette on drums, Arthur Jenkins on conga and percussion, and then John Thomas, who also plays guitars on another one of the songs. So yeah, the vibe is very different than previous. This one has like a promo, if you can see, a little promo sticker, and it's a promotional copy, not for sale, on the label as well. Really, everyone's after these Joe Henderson records. I'm super lucky to have picked them all up back in the day when they were, $10, $15, $20. But this is the last one I needed, so happy to grab this. And lastly, kind of the grail of the bunch. So one of my biggest finds of the year was, do I have it here somewhere? I think it's within reach. As you know, in my top 3 finds of the year was this, the Ensemble Al Salam, The Sojourner. Found this locally. So 2 Strata East records I've added this year. When I get back in there, yes. And I was able to also add their second record, Khalik Al Roof and Salam. So they changed the name of the band. So The Elephant Trot Dance is the name of this record. And half of it is recorded around the same period, not the same session, I think maybe the following month, as the Sojourner record. And the other, which was I think 1975, if I'm not mistaken. And the other half was, so 1975, and then the rest of this record, so side 2, I believe. Anyway, the other part of it was recorded in 1979, so not till 4 years later. And this one's on Nilva Records, which is out of somewhere in Europe. Is it Sweden? I can't remember what country. If it's Sweden, we're Nilva Records, but if I'm not mistaken, it is Alvin Queen's label. He moved to whatever country it is in Europe that I'm not remembering right now because I'm sick and my brain is very foggy. Although the cover of this says printed in France, although I'm pretty sure the label is not based out of France. It could be wrong, but Alvin Queen is a percussionist on this record. And so I guess he knew that they got the band back together all these years later and recorded also in New York But yeah, so Nilva Records. I don't have any other records on Nilva. I know Album Queen does have one titled Ashanti, which I'm after. And this is excellent, 70s post-bop, spiritual jazz, as we want to call it. Just beautiful, moving stuff on the same level as The Sojourner. Highly recommended. So I think this is only my like 5th or 6th video this year, something like that. More good records than one could ever hope for in a year, without going too overboard. Zero expectations for 2024. See what comes to me, and wishing everyone all the best in terms of health, life, family, and records for all us collectors out there. May all the luck be with you, finding everything you want and everything you didn't know you want. Just for me, it's all about the discovery of new music. Yes, it's great to like find out about stuff and want to find it, but I love just finding stuff when I'm out in the wild that looks interesting and discovering it that way. Obviously, it's fun through Instagram, people sharing, discovering stuff that way as well, but nothing like discovering something out in the wild. For example, that Ortega rain dance, which is a super pleasant surprise out on a dig one day. So all the best, Happy New Year, and I'll be back when I'm back in a few months probably. Peace.